Hello and welcome. This video is in response to a question I get asked quite a bit, especially in VRChat. What headset should I get? Is this headset any good? I get a lot of questions about VR. So first, let me tell you, I have a Index. I have full body, as you can see here, and I have an Oculus Quest. So there's a couple things I can answer with first-hand information. I've tried the Vive. I've tried the original CV1. I have a PSVR headset, and I've been using VR since since 2018. So I do have some first-hand experience with some headsets. So number one, let's get one thing out of the way. You will need, if you're trying to do PC VR, I'm going to assume everyone here is interested in PC VR. You will need at least a GTX 1060 graphics card or a RX 570 graphics card. I really recommend the 580, by the way, if you're on AMD or higher. So that means your 1070 is good. 1660 Ti is good. If you have a 1660, you're on the border. If you have a 1660 Super, okay. So if you have these in a laptop, you also may run into some performance issues, especially with the 1060. And if you have the 1060 3GB version, you may run into performance issues because that VRAM is a little low. VRChat seems to, especially when you have lots of avatars in one room, it's very RAM heavy, so you want to have lots of RAM. I have 16 gigabytes of RAM, but if I run into a room with like 60 people or so, I'm lagging. It doesn't matter. Even if I'm hiding people, it's lagging because there's like 12 gigabytes of RAM being used just on VRChat alone. So make sure you have some good specs. VRChat is very unoptimized, especially a lot of avatars. So you want to make sure you have a decent rig. And then we'll move on to the next step, the headset. Now, I get asked a lot about the Quest because it is the cheapest headset on the market. Now, right now, the Quest 2 is the one that's being sold. There is the Quest 1 out there, but I'm going to talk about both because you may want to get the Quest 1 depending on who you are. So I'll cover the Quest 2 right away here. The Quest 2's resolution is 1832 by 1920. That's per eye. It's got a 90 hertz display, and the Quest 2, and the Rift S all use the same controllers, by the way. The original Quest uses a 1440 by 1600 resolution. By the way, the Index has that same resolution. That's a 72 hertz display. It's an OLED, whereas the Quest 2 uses an LED display. Both headsets get you around 100 FOV or so. That field of view, by the way, can kind of change. It depends on how close you can get your eyes to the lenses. So keep that in mind. If you can take that facial interface that it comes with out and put a new one in that's thinner, like a leather one from like VR Cover, and you can get a higher FOV. The closer you get your eyes to those lenses, that FOV actually changes. Not a lot of people know that, but that is true. Now, you're probably like, well, this is really high resolution. It's better than the Index. Yes, it is. But the Quest has two modes. Now, most people know about the standalone mode. That's using Quest without a PC. And VRChat can be run on that, but you will get a limited experience there where you won't be able to go to certain worlds, and you can only see a very small subset of avatars, ones that are made compatible with Quest by the creators. And most people don't bother making Quest-compatible avatars because there's only like 8 shaders that you can actually use for the Quest. You can't use any custom ones. So you're probably going, well, why should I get the Quest and I can't even see half the avatars? No. The Quest is a hybrid headset, which means it can be used with a PC, in tandem with a PC, just as every other headset on the market can. So don't disqualify the Quest right away. And a lot of people don't seem to know this. You can see everything everyone else can in VRChat. You can go to every world, see every avatar if you connect it to the PC using what's called Oculus Link. That requires a USB-C to A cable or USB-C to C cable, depending on your computer, if it has USB-C or not. You're going to have to check your computer and check your ports to find that out. But that link cable will get you computer play. Now, if you don't have a USB-C port on your computer, don't worry, but do not buy the Oculus branded link cable if you do not have a USB-C port, because you won't be able to put it in. So you'll need a C to A cable. I recommend the AM VR cable. You can find that on Amazon. It's $20. It's a huge gauge cable. It's USB 3, and it's got at least a bandwidth of at least 2 gigabits per second. Now I know that the USB 3 can go up to 5 gigabits per second, but most cables don't ever reach that speed. It's possible that the branded fiber optic link cable can reach those speeds, but you're never going to be able to use those speeds on either Quest at this time because they max out at 500 megabits per second. And once you get to 300 megabits per second on that cable, you can't tell the difference really between the visual quality. You can modify this right now with the debug tool on Oculus, as well as going into the Oculus and optimizing for quality, the Oculus application. So you can get some really good quality on the Quest for very cheap price. Now keep in mind, the Quest 2, the 64 gigabyte model is $300, and then you have the 256 for $400. If you're planning on playing only on your PC, do not get that 256 gigabyte model because you're just wasting $100, and you can spend that on some other accessories. If you want to play the Quest without a PC, that's when you want to get those larger models. Now, there's an important thing that needs to be mentioned about the Quest 2. It does not have an IPD slider. It has 3 IPD modes, and that's it. And if you are outside those 3 IPD values, you may get headaches, eye strain, or blurry vision in the headset. So check out what those, you might want to look, this is something you're going to have to look up. You have to check out what those IPD values are and check out what your IPD is. Now, the IPD is the distance between your pupils. This is something you can find out if you have glasses. You can also check an application on your phone to find out your IPD. So look up like IPD Finder or something like that on your App Store or your Play Store. And you can find out what your IPD value is. Or you can ask your eye doctor. They can tell you. They know what it is. But that is important because the Rift S doesn't actually have that at all. Now, let me get to the Rift S. Don't buy the Rift S. It's not going to be supported anymore. It's not getting any more updates. Its resolution per eye is actually much lower than that of the Quest 1 even. Its resolution per eye is actually 1280 by 1440. It has an 80 hertz display and has about 110 FOV. Now, if you want like a zero configuration kind of style headset, you can get the Rift S, but it's because it's not going to require extra accessories or anything like that. It's $400. You got everything you need to go in the box, but there are some problems you'll end up having with it. Especially sometimes it'll tell you that your USB cable is not connected or it can't detect the sensors. Because I've heard this from Rift S owners all the time. It's actually a huge known issue that happens quite a bit, and they're not doing updates for it anymore, so they're not going to fix it. So the Quest 1. The Quest 1, it does have that IPD slider. So that lets you set your IPD all the way from 58, I believe, a 58 or something like that, all the way down to, or all the way up to 70. So you're covered with the Quest 1. The Quest 2, you have 3 IPD values, and if you're within, I think, 4 millimeters or something, you should be fine. So check what those are. I unfortunately don't have the numbers in front of me. So let's move on. The Quest, like I said, it has the Oculus Link capability where you can plug it in via USB-C to the Quest and then plug it in via USB-C to your computer or regular USB, which is known as USB-A. And you need a 3.0 cable. You can buy those on Amazon for as little as like $20, actually. The EMVR cable is $20. It's actually really good for that value. I think it's the best link cable I've ever tried. It doesn't break. It's a really good cable. But you can also hook up your Quest, both of them, wirelessly to your PC too. But you will need to make sure that your router, your wireless router, is AC 5 gigahertz or Wi-Fi 6 5 gigahertz for the best experience, and your computer being wired into Ethernet. And do not put, this is most important by the way, do not put walls in between you, I mean your Quest and you, and your router. If you do, you're going to have a bad experience. So you can check out Virtual Desktop. I really recommend it. I used it almost exclusively, by the way, on my Quest. I used Link for some edge cases, but mostly using Virtual Desktop. And it does it at a little bit extra latency and a little bit more compression to the image. But I honestly didn't notice much of a difference even when I switched to my Index. So Let's continue here. So now I think we've covered everything we need to cover with the Quest. I'm going to move on to the Vive headsets. And let's start with the mixed reality headsets, because I'm not going to cover any of them, because don't get them. The inside-out tracking was terrible on them. It was a big flop, and Oculus is really the only company to do inside-out tracking correctly. And by the way, inside-out tracking, you will not be able to do something like this with inside-out tracking, because the cameras are all in front of your head. So like your cutoff is about here for inside-out tracking. You won't be able to put your hands behind your head, but you can like go like this and then slowly go like this, but then they'll be stuck back here. You can't move them in physical space once you get back here, because the cameras can't see them. Which is fine. I mean, like, do you really need to do something like this in VR? I mean, is it really worth paying some extra money for it? Maybe not. That's up to you to decide. But mixed reality headsets, their tracking was not good. There is the G2, there is the HP G2, and that's an exception. There's one reason why you might not want to get that headset. There's no capacitives on the buttons, and let me tell you, the buttons on the Quest and the Rift and the Quest 2, they're all mostly the same, except for the Quest 2 having a touchpad on it. But they have a capacitive that knows where you're putting your finger. So you put your fingers down on the thumbstick, and your avatar will go like this. You put your finger down on like the buttons, and it does this as well. So like it uses the capacitives on the buttons to sense these gestures. So like imagine your trigger is your index finger, the grip is these three fingers. For the most part, that is how you, and their thumb is the thumbstick. So you can go like this, you can go like this. You can put your hand in a fist, you can point, you can do finger gun. You can do this thing called rock and roll here. That's, trigger and thumbstick. So those are the gestures you can do, and they're actually pretty easy to figure out on the touch controllers, but on other controllers, not so much. Now, I'm going to talk about the Vive controllers and why I don't like them, especially in VRChat. They have a click wheel at the top, and that is how you do gestures. You put your finger, you move your finger around the touchpad. And it's not intuitive. It's not. You can get used to it, but it doesn't feel natural like the touch controllers do. That's why I recommend everyone go with if you can't afford an Index, go with an Oculus Quest. At this point, that's how I see it. It's the Oculus headsets or the Index essentially, because the Vive's been really taken out of the market. Their products, okay, right now they're only selling the Cosmos at this time. You can get the Vive Pro for about as much as the Index on their site right now, and unless you can get a deal where you can spend less than an Index, I would say at least $300 less than the Index on a Vive kit with or without the controllers, because you can just get Index controllers at that point. If you can get Index controllers and the Vive headset, or Vive Pro really has to be the Vive Pro, for again less than $1,000 with the Index controllers, then it'd be worth it. But I mean, only if you're saving. I mean, getting at $800 to $900, because I'll get to the Index next, but the Index has a really, really high refresh rate, and that's really what makes it king, at least the headset itself. Now, the Vive's controllers are really its weakest point, and you can get the Cosmos Elite for $900. With the you might as well just get an Index at that point. It's $100 more. And you're using the old controllers for the Cosmos, it's not worth it. It's really not worth it. Unless you have to have that wireless adapter, and again, you can get a good deal on the Index controllers. It's really not worth it. I would not spend extra on a headset and $300 on a wireless adapter to get wireless VR. It's especially when you can get the Quest and do virtual desktop and get wireless for much, much, much cheaper. Now, you can use the Index controllers and full body on the Quest. You just need base stations, so that's an extra payment, but it still ends up costing less than spending $1,000 on, or nearly $1,000 on a Vive product, and then $300 more. So you'd be $600 more to get that wireless feature. So you're close to full body at that point with the Quest. You can spend that much on the Quest and then get full body added on. So I don't really think much of the Vive products because of that. It's really the controllers that kill it for me. But if you can get a good deal, then that's up to you. The Index, I'm just giving you the information here. The Index has a 1440 by 1600 resolution with a 14. It's a micro OLED display, or not OLED, micro LED display, I think, something like that. But it's at 144 hertz, and it's got 135 variable FOV, which means that there's actually a knob here you turn, and it brings the lenses closer, further to your eyes. It's got the best FOV available on the consumer market, other than the Pimax. The Pimax ends up warping things, so we're not even going to talk about that. It's also not a headset that comes with a whole full package. Now, the controllers are the best part about the Index. You get finger tracking. Every single one of your fingers is tracked. You get a touchpad that has a force sensor, and the grips have a force sensor. This is also something that's not talked about as much, but the grips also really make the Index. Now, when you want to grab or throw something, you just grab or throw it. You can let go of your controllers, and they don't fly across the room because they're attached to your hands with a strap. And you have a force sensor on there that can be used to grab things. And you can tune that force sensor. So again, you're not just grabbing down at your hands and pulling up guns and stuff. You actually have to put some force into it and then throw it. And there's also a force sensor on the touchpad as well. And you get the same controls you have on any other controller. I mean, the touch controllers. You get the clickable analog stick. But by the way, the analog stick issues have been fixed now. We're on generation 3 of the Vive Knuckles, or sorry, the Index, Valve Index Knuckles now. And most of the issues the controllers have been solved now. I really like the Index. There's also, like, with the triggers, there's also as well as, like, pushing the triggers back, you can also click them. So, by the way, the fingers, as you can see, there's a proximity sensor there that can detect how far my finger is down as well. So they're very natural to use. And especially in a social application, that's something big. I know the cost of the Index is the real thing that's holding it back, but maybe wait a little bit, because there's some rumors out there that are making wireless for the Index, whether that be a new headset that has wireless built in or what, another Index, as well as a cheaper Index, probably around $700 or so, I would imagine. And also the Index, as well as the Vive. The Vive is also one you can do this with, but I really rather do this with the Index given its features. You can get full body tracking, and it works out much, much easier. And it's easy to set up with the Index because it already has base stations. Now, you can do this with any other headset. You can use full body, you just need to have base stations. And then you need to combine your play spaces. So that's done with a program called like Play Space Calibrator, where you go like this with a Vive tracker on your hand and your controller in your hand, and it kind of figures out where it needs to go. So if you ask me, I really see two choices at this point in the market as it stands. I mean, you can take a look at the HP Reverb 2 and do your own research on that one. It might be something you want. But it doesn't have capacitives on the buttons, which would be a deal breaker for me, for sure. But it does have a higher resolution than the Index does, but it doesn't use base stations. You could make a kit together with that would have a higher resolution than the Index, but then again, your controllers at least would be using the base stations, but your headset wouldn't. I don't know. I don't know if they had a headset package. I would think about getting that, but it'd be a lot to mess around with, to have to use your controllers separately with the base stations and everything. I don't really know how that would work out. It was annoying enough with my Quest to have to combine the play spaces, and I ended up being at a slant the first time, and it was a little bit irritating. This is just the full body just kind of works really well with the Index. And the base stations are actually cheaper, so if you do want to buy the Quest and you want to get full body later, Index will make it easier, but if you do get the Quest, you're going to have to pay for the base stations. And HTC is charging $200 for those 2.0 base stations. Get the Index ones. They're $150 a pop. Brand new. When they're in stock, anyways. They have been out of stock for a while. Anyways, that's my video. If you guys have any questions, feel free to message me. Or leave a comment and I'll try to get back to you about it. If you have my Discord, you can send me a Discord message. But that'll be it for now.